The Dutch are one of the most direct people in the world, but often they get mistaken for being rude. But what exactly is Dutch directness and why are the Dutch so direct? Well, Cambridge defines directness as the quality of saying what you think in a very honest way. And what better way to illustrate Dutch directness than seeing it on the world stage from our world leaders?
If we do work it out, that'll be positive, and if we don't, it'll be positive also, because
No.
we'll just think about those cars that pour in here, and we'll do
positive.
something, right?
We have to work
But
something.
it'll be positive.
Well, besides the awkward exchange, this is a perfect example of Dutch directness and American optimism. Whereas Americans can be extremely over-optimistic, Dutch directness is really about being honest, sincere. It's about saying no when you mean no. So here's another example of a very direct Dutch no.
I need you to say your name and your country and nothing you just want here.
Are you stupid?
I know, but tape identification, please.
Hell no, I'm not gonna do that.
So when is it direct and when is it rude? Because Dutch directness is by far one of the biggest culture shocks many foreigners face in the Netherlands.
Are they being intentionally rude, or are they just like being direct?
How direct people can be.
Direct communication, that's I think also how Dutch people are famous about. It is the opposite, both in Turkey and in Dubai, I would say.
People communicate, the way people want to conduct business is very different. For some, might be very direct, going even to rude.
The communication style here is more direct.
English people like to type out a lot, they have long sentences, they like to say everything nicely. Dutch people kind of just get straight to the point.
And this makes sense because, well, culture shocks happen when different cultures collide. Some cultures are naturally more direct, some cultures are more naturally indirect. That's the beauty of the world that we live in. And actually, there's quite a bit of science, research, and history to explain Dutch directness. If we take a look at Aaron Meyer's popular book, The Culture Map, it explains cultural differences using 8 different scales. And there are 2 scales that I believe explain Dutch directness and why the Dutch may seem rude according to certain other cultures.
In the communication scale, there are countries that are low context on the far left, like the US and the Netherlands, where good communication is simple, clear, precise. Good communication for countries on the far right, high context, is nuanced, sophisticated. Everything depends on knowing the context of the culture and reading between the lines. Now, how you read the scale is by comparing one country's relative position to another country's. For example, there could be miscommunication between the Dutch and the Chinese because they communicate very differently. In the next scale, the evaluation or negative feedback scale, this is why many people perceive the Dutch as being rude, because this scale is all about negative feedback and criticism. And the Dutch, they're very okay with giving direct negative feedback. Dutch people give direct negative feedback bluntly, honestly, and directly. Countries on the right of this scale, these countries, many in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, they don't like to give direct negative feedback. And this is why the Dutch, one of the lowest context communicators and one of the most direct when it comes to giving direct negative feedback, may come off as rude.
Another reason why Dutch directness may come off as rude is because, according to research, there are generally 2 types of cultures: peach cultures and coconut cultures. Peach cultures like the US tend to be more friendly and soft. They may smile more often, say more please, thank you, quickly share personal information. Peach cultures tend to be soft on the outside, like a peach, but once you get towards the inside, the hard pits, that's where the relationship may stop. Now, whereas peach cultures tend to be overly friendly, coconut cultures like the Dutch tend to be more rigid, brief, straightforward, direct, to the point. They may seem cold or rude because they will say fewer thank yous, pleases. Now, for coconuts, it might take a bit more time, it might be more difficult to build that relationship, but if you're able to break through that coconut shell, you'll get to the softer, friendlier side, and that actually might be an even stronger relationship. And now I live in the Netherlands, a very coconut-like culture. And this is what I've observed to be the differences between the 2 different cultures. For example, if someone asked you to hang out next Wednesday, but you actually couldn't make it, an American would say, "Oh man, I would love to go, but I already have plans next Wednesday. I mean, we can try another day, but really appreciate the offer though." And a Dutch person would say, "I can't make it next Wednesday, I already have plans. Thanks though." So Dutchies are coconuts, and while that directness may seem hard on the outside, especially the peach cultures, they may actually be soft and friendly on the inside, just like a coconut. But wait, what about Dutch people? Do they actually know that they're very direct? What do Dutch people think about Dutch directness? Pros? Cons?
Dutch directness, it pretty much just means kind of no bullshit, as in it's either yes or no. So
It's not beating around the bush. It's just being very honest in terms of your opinion and what you're trying to convey, whether it's something as simply as picking out a restaurant to go to. You make a decision, you go with it, and then that's pretty much it.
Dutch directness for me is like going straight to the point. Like other cultures will often go around it and they will tell you all kinds of politeness and extra stuff, while the Dutch will just be like, yeah, this is how it is. I have like a friend from the UK, love the guy, but he always tends to like really like go around the point, but he like over explains it almost, and it puts a lot of politeness in there, make sure like I would not be able to misunderstand it. While the Dutch will just go from like A to B like in a straight line, while he just makes a little like extra way.
What do you think are pros and cons of being direct?
Pro would be you don't waste a lot of time. You get across how it is, at least for you, your experience.
In a company, so in sort of more of a business environment, the pro would be that you actually get things done, because there's somebody that makes a decision that just says, yes, we're doing that, or no, we're not doing that, and you just go with whether the decision that's been made. At the same time, a big pro would be, making tough decisions. So for example, a manager or director who has to, let's say, very simply has to fire someone. It's very simply for a Dutch person being very direct. It's like, yeah, you're fired. And here's the facts why, kind of thing.
But the con would be that people might think you're rude, especially if you come from a culture where it's normal to like add a lot of politeness to your words. Then if you enter the Dutch country, you're like, whoa, people can be kind of rude while they're just trying to help you. It's just like, that's how it is.
The con of it is, at least from my experience, it does leave less room for maybe some creativity. Yeah, there's little room to sort of maneuver and to be flexible in certain cases.
And to understand why the Dutch are so direct, we have to take a look at the past. One of the reasons why the Dutch are so direct is because of its history as a great trading nation. In the 16th and 17th centuries, the Dutch were a major player in global trade, and having a direct, straightforward communication style was important and necessary to do business around the world. And another theory that I read about was when you're packed in these boats going around the world, you can't afford to be polite and friendly. Having this direct style was important in order to resolve conflicts. Another reason is due to the influence of Calvinism in the past. Calvinism really stressed the importance of being honest, being transparent, being individualistic, expressing your own opinions. There's nothing to hide, so I will just say it. I will show it. This type of transparency is evident in many of the Dutch houses. They have these really big open windows so you can actually look inside someone's home. Hey, I have nothing to hide, so here it is. And Dutch culture tends to be quite flat. It's more egalitarian, less hierarchy. And directness works in this context because you can say what you think to anyone and everyone, from the CEO to a professor, without having big repercussions or getting punished. For example, if you say what's on your mind and you criticize the CEO in a culture where there is a lot of hierarchy, you might just get punished. And for example, when I did my master's here, I was surprised to hear Dutch students argue directly with the professor, because you would never see that happen in a culture where there is a lot more hierarchy. And lastly, the Dutch are a consensus culture, meaning decisions are made by the group. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? People learn to share thoughts and ideas, and being direct and being honest is necessary for the group to make the best possible choice. So what have I learned about Dutch directness? Well, Dutch directness is simply honesty, saying what's on your mind. And if I'm honest, I've come to really appreciate and love Dutch directness, especially as a more indirect person myself. And by being more direct, it allows me to release my emotions and my thoughts, because often when you have thoughts and emotions stuck inside, they bottle up, and that can actually be quite toxic. And so directness has been really beneficial for my mental health and well-being. It also allows me to not waste time guessing what's on someone else's mind, and also it helps other people not guess what's on my mind as well. But of course, communication is really about how you say something. And while I don't think I will ever become as direct as the Dutch, I've learned that you can become direct and polite at the same time. And so now I finally know why the Dutch are so direct. It's because they're coconuts.